Okay, so hello again everyone. Time check, it's 2:30 in the morning and as of now, wala pa rin pong ilaw sa amin. So, this is the part 2 of our presentation. So, in this part po, iti-discuss ko muna yung about sa retrieval. So, I think sa title pa lang ng slide is meron na kayong idea kung ano yung pag-uusapan natin dito. So, retrieval. It is a process of bringing stored information back into our conscious mind when we need it. So, sa madaling salita, ito yung way kung paano tayo nakakaalala. So, merong dalawang types ng retrieval. First is si short-term memory retrieval. So, ang advantage nito is it allows quick access to recent information. And then yung disadvantage naman niya is it has only a limited capacity and madaling makalimutan kapag hindi siya pinopractice or nire-rehearse. And next we have a long-term memory retrieval. Ito naman is, ang advantage dito is nasa-store permanently yung mga information. Pero ang disadvantage dito is it can be slow or even fail without proper cues. So, minsan, madali lang ang retrieval, like remembering your name. Pero minsan, it requires effort, just like recalling a specific detail from a lecture. So, now let's look at how our brain retrieve information from short-term memory. So, cognitive psychologist Saul Sternberg wanted to understand how we retrieve information from short-term memory. So, he proposed two possible ways. First is the parallel versus serial processing. So, sa parallel processing, dito is hinahanap ng brain natin lahat ng information ng sabay-sabay. Like, scanning an entire class photo and instantly recognizing a friend. So, sa serial processing naman is, hinahanap ng brain natin yung information isa-isa. For example, flipping through a notebook page by page to find a specific note. So, which one do we actually use? So, ang result ng experiment is, according sa data ni Sternberg, we use serial processing. Ibig sabihin, we search one item at a time rather than retrieving everything at once. Pero hindi pa tapos. Kapag nakita na ba natin yung sagot, magsa-stop na ba tayo sa paghahanap or do we keep scanning? So, another one is exhaustive versus terminating processing. So, sa exhaustive processing, tinutuloy daw natin ang pag-scan sa lahat ng information even though nahanap na natin yung sagot. And then sa self-terminating processing naman, we stop searching as soon as we find the answer. So, which one do we use? So, according sa result is, Sternberg found that we use exhaustive processing. Ibig sabihin, tinatapos natin yung pag-scan ng lahat ng information kahit na nahanap na natin yung sagot. So, kaya pala minsan, kahit naalala mo na yung tamang sagot, parang nag-iisip ka pa rin kasi yung brain mo parang chine-check lahat ng iba pang nakastore na information bago to mag-confirm. So now, what's the final conclusion of Sternberg's research? So, the serial exhaustive model states that we search memory one item at a time. Yun na yung serial processing. And then, we check all items before answering, even if we found the answer early. So, yun na yung exhaustive processing. Kaya siya serial exhaustive.
Hi everyone, I'm Lian. So, I have a question for you. Have you ever struggled to remember something, but once you got a hint, you recalled it instantly? So today we'll explore how retrieval works, why we sometimes struggle with it, and how we can improve our memory recall. So I'm gonna talk about retrieval from long-term memory. So memory allows us to store and recall information over time. One of the most important functions of memory is retrieval. which is the process of bringing stored information back into our awareness when we need it. This happens every day if mag-remember tayo ng someone's name, recall facts for a test, or think about past experiences. So, remembering information from a long-term memory is an important mental process that allows us to bring back stored knowledge when we need it. However, recalling memories is not always easy, and sometimes kailangan natin ng mga hints or cues to help us remember. So, in this report, I will discuss the different ways we retrieve memories and how organizing information can make recall easier. So, there are two types of retrieval. First is free recall, second is skilled recall. So, ang free recall, this occurs when a person recalls information without any external hints or cues. It is often more challenging because the individual must retrieve the memory without assistance. For example, yung kaibigan mo, tinanong ka ng mga title ng movie or name ng movies you watched last year. So, without any hints or cues or reminders, try mo mag-recall as many as you can. Second is skilled recall. In this type of retrieval, hints or cues are provided to aid memory recall. Studies show that people perform better in skilled recall compared to free recall. Halimbawa, may nagtanong sa'yo kung bumili ka ng apple sa grocery. Dahil sa tanong na yon, bigla mong na-remember na nasa listahan mo pala ang apple kasi nga may nag-remind sa'yo. Next is the Tolving and Pearstone experiment, cued versus free recall. A study conducted by Tolving and Pearstone in 1966 explored how different types of memory retrieval affect recall. In this study, participants were given a list of words that were grouped into specific categories. Later, tinanong sila na mag-remember ng mga words as many as possible. Then yung ibang participants were given category names as hints, while yung iba magre-recall ng mga words on their own without any help. The results showed that those who received category labels as cues performed significantly better, meaning they remembered more words compared to those who had to rely on their memory. So, the findings suggest that forgetting often happens not because the information is lost from memory, but because nag-struggle tayo to retrieve it. In many cases, the right hints or cues can help bring back information that is already stored in our memory but is temporarily difficult to access. Next is the power of organization, Bower et al. Experiment. A study by Bower et al. In 1969 that looked at how we organize information affects memory. In this experiment, participants were given a list of words, but the words were presented into different ways. First is random order, second is organized into a hierarchy. Ang random order, the words were shown without any clear pattern or structure, while ang organized into a hierarchy, the words were grouped into categories in a structured way, like similar siya sa tree diagram. For example, sa random order, imagine meron kang grocery list with items like sugar, saging, sabon, bigas, gatas, toothpaste, apple, and shampoo. Since they are not arranged in any order, mahirap i-remember lahat ng items. Example naman sa organized into a hierarchy, if yung grocery list is nakagroup into categories like yung food, andun lahat yung saging, sugar, rice, gatas, and apple. And sa isang category naman, yun yung mga hygiene products, which is yung soap, toothpaste, and shampoo. So, it becomes easier to remember the items kasi nga naka-organize sila into clear groups or categories. So, ano nga ba yung nakita nila? So, people who saw the words in organized format remembered 65% of them. Then, people who saw the words in random order only remembered 19%. Bakit nga ba to nagmamatter? So, this shows that our brain remembers information better when it is structured. If words are grouped by category like lahat animals and lahat fruits, madali lang siya i-recall. But if nakamix sila randomly, remembering becomes much harder. This is why organizing information such as using outlines or categories helps improve memory. Next is the Kader et al. Experiment, how the brain retrieves information. So I will explain an important study on how the brain retrieves information conducted by Kader et al. In 2005. This experiment focused on understanding kung saang parts ng brain ang active if nagre-recall tayo ng different types of information such as locations and faces. So overview of the experiment, participants in the study were shown abstract words that were paired with either a spatial position o yung specific locations for a grid and yung face, yun na yung an image of a person. So after some time, participants were tested to see how they could remember this connection to measure brain activity. So yung mga researchers, gumamit sila ng fMRI o yung functional magnetic resonance imaging, a technology that helps track which areas of the brain are working during memory retrieval. So findings of the study, the results of the experiment revealed that yung ibang-ibang parts ng brain are responsible for retrieving different types of information. First is remembering spatial positions, activated the parietal and prefrontal cortex, which are brain areas na responsible for spatial awareness and movement. This area help us understand where things are in space. Second is remembering faces, activated the left prefrontal temporal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex, which are responsible para mag-recognize sa mga objects and faces. So these brain regions help us identify people and recall visual details. So bakit nga ba itong study is importante? So these studies show that memory is not stored in just one place in the brain. Instead, different types of information like locations and faces are processed and retrieved by different brain regions. This helps explain why some memories feel more automatic, like mag-recognize ka ng familiar faces, while others require more effort, like remembering where you placed an object. So, understanding how memory retrieval works can help scientists develop better ways to improve memory, especially for people with memory-related conditions such as yung may mga Alzheimer disease or brain injuries. It also helps us appreciate how powerful and complex our brains are in handling different types of information. So, the Kader et al. In 2005 study provides valuable insights into how the brain organizes and retrieve different kinds of memories. The experiment shows that our ability to recall information depends on specific brain regions working together. This research helps us understand why some memories are easier to retrieve than others, how we can improve memory retention in the future. The availability versus accessibility problem. First is yung availability, means yung information is nakastored lang sa utak natin. For example, dati nung bata ka pa, marunong ka mag-bike, then kahit na hindi ka naka-ride ng bike ng ilang years, yung knowledge na yun, kung paano mag-bike is nasa utak pa rin natin. Yung accessibility naman, whether we can find and use the information if kailangan natin. Sometimes, alam natin yung information, nasa memory natin, pero hindi natin yun maalala. Like, it's just like forgetting where ebook is in a big library. For example, another example, during the exam, nakalimutan mo bigla yung answer kahit na nastudihan mo yun. So, yung information o yung sagot is nasa utak mo lang, but hindi mo siya ma-access at that moment. So, it explains that memory problems are often not about forgetting, but about not being able to retrieve the information. This means that information is stored in our brain, but hindi natin siya always ma-access. This concept is important in understanding why people sometimes struggle to recall things. So, scientists study this by testing how we retrieve words, faces, and locations, as shown in the experiment by Kader et al. 2005. So, the intelligence and retrieval. So, let's start with the first question. Does processing speed affect memory? So, the answer is yes, but in different ways. So, when we first try to remember something, our initial recall depends on how fast our brain processes information. If someone is lower processing speed, mag-struggle sila mag-recall ng information. Common ito sa mga older people. For example, imagine you are in a quiz competition, then yung host nag-ask ng question if you can process information quickly. So you might recall the answer immediately. But if your processing speed is lower, mag-struggle ka mag-remember kahit na alam mo yung sagot. So, but what about long-term memory? The good news is that long-term learning is not affected much by processing speed. Instead, depende ito sa mga strategies like repetition and practice. This means that even if someone is slow at recalling things at first, they can still remember them well over time. For example, let's say you are learning a new language. Kahit na matagal mo ma-process yung mga new words, you can still remember them if you keep practicing and repeating them over time. So, another key point is about intelligent tests. Many intelligent tests measure how fast we process information. However, this does not always reflect true intelligence. Someone who processes information quickly may do well on tests, but that doesn't mean they are better at learning than someone who takes their time. For example, think of two students learning math. Ang first student mabilis nakasolve ng problems, while ang pangalawang student takes longer but understand the concept deeply. Even though the second student is slower, they may still perform just as well, or even better in the long run. Next is process of forgetting and memory distortion. So why do we forget things quickly nga ba? So there are two main explanation about this, which are interference and decay theory. Next is interference theory. According to interference theory, forgetting happens because ang new and old information ga-complete siya sa memory natin. Ibig sabihin, if we try to remember something, other memories might get in the way. So, meron two types of interference, retroactive and proactive interference. First, let's talk about retroactive interference. So, nangyayari ito when new learning disrupts old memories. In simple terms, learning something new makes it harder to recall what you've learned before. For example, you used to speak French fluently but then nag-start ka mag-learn ng Spanish. Now, when you try to speak French, you accidentally use Spanish words instead. Kasi nga, yung new learning mo is ka-interfere sa old learning mo. And the second type is proactive interference. Nangyayari ito pag ang old memories block new learning. In other words, things you've learned in the past can make it harder to remember new information. Halimbawa, if nag-change ka ng password mo sa Facebook, then if mag-login ka na, kinatype mo yung old password mo kahit na nag-change ka ng password bago lang. Kasi nga, ang brain mo is stuck on the past information, making it harder to remember the new one. Serial position effect. First is primacy effect. Dito na yung ma-remember lang natin yung nasa first sa listahan. While ang recency effect naman, ma-remember lang natin yung sa hulihan or yung sa last sa list. Ang middle items naman, madalas makalimutan dahil sa interference. So, bakit nga ba ito nangyayari? So, first items, avoid retroactive interference, while ang last items, avoid proactive interference. So, yung middle items, suffer sa both interference. So, example sa primacy effect, ito na yung first items are remembered. Halimbawa nga dito, like you are introduced to a group of 10 people at a party, and then ang mas maalala mo lang ay yung mga first few names nila na narinig mo because you had more time to rehearse them in your mind. So, recency effect naman, halimbawa dito, if someone binigyan ka ng grocery list and hindi mo gi-write down o sinulat, so you are more likely to remember the last few items na i-mention niya kasi nga fresh pa siya sa memory mo. So, middle items are forgotten due to interference. Example, if nakikinig ka sa long speech, you may clearly remember the introduction and conclusion, but nagsistruggle ka mag-recall kung ano ang sinabi sa middle. So the serial position effect explains why we remember the first and last things best while forgetting the middle one. So this is due to interference in memory. If you want to improve recall, try breaking up information into smaller parts or reviewing it frequently. Next is decay theory. So, ang decay theory, ginastate dito na ang memories is nag-fade over time if hindi natin siya napapractice. Unlike interference theory, we suggest that new memories block old ones. So, ang decay theory believes memories simply got disappear on their own or got disappear naturally. So, a study by Berman et al. In 2009 tested this using the recent probes task where yung participants had to recognize the mga words from a list. So, the results showed that interference had a much bigger impact on forgetting than decay. So, ibig sabihin that forgetting happens more because of new information interfering with old memories rather than just time passing. So, decay is like mahirap siya i-study since people naturally try to rehearse what they learn. However, the recent probes task helped researchers test decay, and they found that interference, yun na yung main reason for short-term memory loss. So, I will be discussing the constructive nature of memory. So, ang memory natin ay hindi siya parang video na re-replay natin yung mga past events. Instead, our brains reconstruct them using cues, experiences, and knowledge. So, dahil dito, ang memories natin, nag-change siya over time. So, first in here is the reconstructive memory. So, if we recall memories, hindi natin to na re-replay same sa video. Instead, we rebuild them using different details and past experiences. So, paminsan, this process can lead to changes or errors in our memories. For example, you're telling a story about sa birthday mo last year, then yung maalala mo lang yung cake, your friends, and yung mga decoration, pero yung mga small details like the exact words na sinabi nila or sinabi ng kaibigan mo might change each time if magtell ka ng story. Next is the constructive memory. So, our past experiences affect what and how we remember things. So, ibig sabihin, two people might remember the same event differently based on their background and knowledge. Halimbawa, if two people watch the same movie, yung isa might focus on the action scenes while yung isa remembers the emotional moments. So, nangyayari ito because their past experiences shape how they see and recall the movie. So, sunod dito ay ang Bransford and Johnson studies. So, understanding context helps improve memory. For example, kung binasa mo ang isang nakakalitong paragraph tungkol sa sabon, tubig at umiikot na damit, baka hindi mo ito agad maintindihan. Pero kapag sinabi sa'yo na tungkol ito sa laundry, then suddenly everything makes sense and you remember it better. Next is ambiguous passages. So, people understand and remember details differently based on how they interpret them. For example, if meron kang narinig na story about a man looking down from a high place, so you might imagine o isipin mo na he's standing on a building, pero yung iba isipin nila na he's looking from an airplane. So, the details we remember, nagdepende ito on how we understand the story. Next is doodle study. So, people remember things better if meron tong mga labels or meaning. So, sa doodle study, participants were shown abstract drawings called doodles. So, yung isang group naka-receive na may mga labels, while yung isang group wala. So, the group with labels remembered 20% more than those without. So, this proves that giving meaning to information help us remember it better. For example, imagine meron kang nakita na weird na drawing, so if someone tells you it's a butterfly, so you are more likely to remember it. But if wala itong label, you might forget it faster. This is because giving meaning to something helps our memory. So, to sum up, ang memory natin is hindi perfect, pero sinishape ito ng knowledge natin, experiences, and interpretations. This is why two people can remember the same event differently. And understanding this can help us improve learning and avoid false memories. Autobiographical memory. Ang autobiographical memory refers to personal memories of past events sa buhay natin. So, these memories are not exact recordings, but reconstructed every time if nire-recall natin ito. Ibig sabihin, nag-change ito over time na na-influence sa emotions natin, personal experiences, and even how often we remember them. So, patterns of recall. Yung mga middle-aged adults tend to remember their youth and early adulthood better than recent events. This is because memories from young adulthood are often more important and emotional, so making them more likely to be recalled later in life. So, this real position effect suggests that people tend to remember the first and last events in a sequence better than those in the middle. So, this applies to both everyday experiences and long-term life memories. So, diary study. So, some researchers study memory by asking people to keep diaries and i-record yung mga experiences nila. So, one study found that forgetting happens in a straight line o linear rather than a curve. Ibig sabihin, ang memories is nag-fade at a steady rate over time. So, interestingly, the study found na walang malakas na connection between emotional intensity and how well a memory is remembered. Ibig sabihin, hindi porket emotional ang isang alaala ay mas matatandaan natin ito ng mas matagal. So, self-esteem effect. So, yung mga tao na mayroong high self-esteem tend to remember more positive events, habang yung mga taong depressed ay mas ma-remember nila yung mga negative experiences. So, this shows that memory recall is influenced by our emotions and mental state. So, flashbulb memory. So, ito ay isang klase ng memory kung saan sobrang linaw and detailed ang memory of an emotional or shocking event. So, people often describe these memories as feeling like a snapshot of the moment. So, yung sa example sa book, yun yung madaming tao were alive during the 9/11 attacks or the assassination of President Kennedy. So, nare-recall nila kung saan sila, kung ano yung ginagawa nila nung narinig nila yung news. So, factors affecting flashbulb memory. So, first is the personal importance. So, if the event matters to the person, they are more likely to remember it. Ang surprise naman, ito na yung mga unexpected events create stronger memories. Ang emotional impact naman, kung mas malakas ang emosyon na naramdaman mo sa isang event, mas malaki ang chance na malala mo ito. Accuracy versus vividness. So, people often feel very confident in their flashbulb memories, but hindi ibig sabihin na accurate ito. So, retelling a memory makes it more vivid, but can also change details over time and making it less reliable. So, the 9/11 study. So, a study over 3,000 people found that memories of the World Trade Center attacks faded quickly within the first year, but then naging stable ito. So, yung emotional reactions to the event disappeared faster than the factual details. So, maraming tao ang mali ang pagkakaalala sa exact na pangyayari. Halimbawa, marami ang nag-aakalang napanood nila sa live TV ang pagbagsak ng unang eroplano, kahit na hindi talaga ito na broadcast hanggang kinabukasan. So, pinapakita nito na kahit malinaw ang ating memory, maaari pa rin itong madisturbo o magbago sa paglipas ng panahon. So, overall, our memories are not like a perfect video recording. Instead, they change over time and every time we remember them. So, yung mga age natin, emotion, and how often we recall an event can affect what we remember. So, ang flashbulb memories feel very clear and detailed, pero hindi ibig sabihin na always ito accurate. So, yung 9/11 study shows that even strong memories can fade or change over time. In short, memory is powerful but not always reliable. So, memory distortion. So, ang memory, tinutulungan tayo para mag-learn and gumawa ng decisions. Pero hindi ito always accurate. So, sometimes we remember things incorrectly or even create false memories. So, psychologist Daniel Shatter identified 7 common memory mistakes like forgetting over time, mixing up details, or being influenced by others. So, itong mga errors na to can affect daily life and even lead to serious problems like mistakes in eyewitness testimony. So, understanding memory distribution, tinutulungan tayo para maging aware sa mga errors na to and find ways to improve our memory. So, first is transience. Ito na yung mga memories na nag-fade over time. For example, malinaw mong naalala ang mukha ng childhood best friend mo, pero years later, nag-blurry siya. So, next is yung absent-mindedness. Ito na yung mga nakakalimutan natin yung mga bagay-bagay dahil sa lack of attention. For example, yung phone mo, nilagay mo man kung saan, then after ilang minutes or seconds, nakalimutan mo kung saan mo to iniwan. So, third is blocking. Ito na yung when you know something pero hindi mo siya ma-recall at that moment. O ito na yung tinatawag na the tip of the tongue phenomenon. For example, nag-try ka mag-recall ng movie title pero hindi mo siya masabi, like nakastuck lang siya sa tip of your tongue. So, pang-apat is yung misattribution. Ito na yung confusing where a memory came from. Like, you might think you saw something but actually you only read about it. For example, nag-tell ka ng joke, then iniisip mo na like ikaw gumawa ng joke na yon, pero actually you heard it from a friend or nabasa mo lang. So, ang panglima is ang suggestibility. Ito na yung memories can be changed by misleading information. If someone suggests something happen, you might believe it even if didn't. So, for example, ang friend mo, sinabi niya na andun ka sa party niyo last year. Then, kahit na wala ka doon, nag-start ka na maniwala na andun ka. So, ang pang-ani is bias. Ito na yung mga current beliefs and emotions can change how you remember past events. For example, after sa breakup nyo, ang maalala mo lang yung mga bad moments sa relationship nyo kahit na mayroon namang mga good times. So, ang last is, yung pang-7 is persistence. So, ito na yung mga some memories like embarrassing or traumatic events that stick in your mind and like nakasik lang siya sa mind mo, then mahirap siyang kalimutan. For example, like always mo maalala yung mga embarrassing moment from years ago even if ayaw mo. Yun eh. So, next is repressed memories, so which are believed to be traumatic events pushed into the unconscious mind. So, may ilang therapists na gumagamit ng hypnosis para ma-recover ito. Pero marami ding psychologists ang hindi naniniwala na totoo ito. So, isa sa malaking problema ay ang false memories. Dahil hindi naman perfecto ang memory natin, madala itong maapektuhan ng suggestion, source monitoring errors, and spreading activation. So, yung suggestion, kapag palagi mong naririnig ang isang bagay, maaari mong paniwalaan na nangyari ito kahit hindi naman totoo. For example, kung laging sinasabi sa isang bata na like nung baby pa siya is nawala siya sa mall, then isipin niya na totoo ito kahit hindi naman talaga nangyari. So, next is source monitoring errors. Minsan, hindi natin matandaan kung saan natin nakuha ang memory na yon and akala natin na nangyari ito sa atin. Pero baka napanood lang natin ito sa isang movie. For example, we might recall a childhood story but later na-realize mo na galing pala ito sa isang movie. So, hindi talaga ito nangyari sa iyo. So, next is spreading activation. Kapag may naririnig tayong like magkakaugnay na salita o idea, minsan na papaniwala tayo na may narinig tayong salita na hindi naman talaga sinabi. Halimbawa, kung marinig mo ang bed, pillow, blanket, and nap, automatic na maisip ng utak mo ang sleep. Kaya maaring ma-remember mo ito kahit hindi naman talaga nabanggit. So, pinapakita dito na hindi perfecto ang memory natin and can be influenced by associations. So next is the effect of context on memory. So first in here, the internal context and schemas. So our memory is affected by our internal context, meaning our emotions, moods, and state of mind. So if we are in the same mood or mental state as when we first learned something, we are more likely to remember it. For example, ang mga taong depressed ay mas madalas na ma-remember nila yung mga negative memories kasi naapektuhan ng emosyon nila ang kanilang memory. So, isa pang factor sa memory ay ang schemas o mga mental frameworks na tumutulong sa atin para ma-organize at ma-store ang information. So, experts have stronger schemas which allow them to recall information more easily and accurately. For example, yung doctor can quickly recognize symptoms of disease kasi nga ang schema nila is well developed, while yung mga regular person lang might struggle to connect the symptoms. So, next is external conflict. So, aside from our internal state, our physical environment also plays a big role in our memory. So, people tend to remember things better when they are in the same location kung saan nila natutunan ito. For example, sa isang experiment, mas ma-remember ng isang scuba diver ang mga salitang natutunan nila kung tinest sila sa parehong environment. Yun yung sa underwater. So, this proves that our surroundings can serve as memory cues. Even infants show this effect. So, babies can remember tasks better when they are tested in the same environment kung saan nila natutunan ito. However, if the setting changes, they struggle to recall what they learned. For example, kung isang baby ay natutong sumipa sa isang crib para mapagalaw niya ang mga toys niya, so the baby might not remember how to do it if nalipat siya sa ibang crib o ibang lugar. So this shows that early memories are context dependent. So ang last is ang encoding specificity. Another key factor in our memory is encoding specificity. Ibig sabihin, mas madali nating maalala ang mga information kung paano natin ito unang natutunan. For example, sa isang study na Pattins and Tolving, mas madaling ma-remember ng mga participants ang mga salita kung binigyan sila ng parehong clues na ginamit noong unang nilang inaral ang mga tools. So, this means that how we learn something influences how well we remember it later. So, ang practical application, if you want to improve memory, you should study in a way that matches how you'll be tested. For example, if you're preparing for a written exam, so practicing them with written questions will help you remember better. So if it's an oral exam naman, try explaining concepts out loud. So in conclusion, memory is influenced by both internal factors na yun na yung emotions and mental state, and ang external factors naman yung location and environment and cues. So to remember things better, try to be in the same mode or setting where you first learned the information. So using study techniques that match how you recall the information can also improve memory. So this is why people sometimes recall memories when they revisit old places, hear familiar music, or experience certain emotions. So they serve as memory triggers. And that's all.